Well, hello, everybody. Here I am. Am I here? Let's see. I do this myself. Okay. Well, welcome to this episode of Parent to Parent. I'm Rashi Vats, and I'm just going to fix my necklace here, get myself together. It is humid outside. It's like this combination of like rainy kind of ish and, hot as well, but whatever. So the big thing that we're dealing with right now is back to school. So many kids are already back. And, HISD, we just did a story recently where they're having a board meeting talking about whether they're going to equip their police officers with rifles and shields. Like there's all this craziness going on. And most of you know this because I've been very vocal about it. So my 5-year-old is going to start kindergarten next week, actually. And, there's all these like questions about what do I tell him? Because he'll be part of an active shooter drill, I'm sure, at some point, or about safety, about security, why to have, they might have to go through metal detectors, all those things. And so there's all this anxiety also. And I'll be very transparent. I've done so many back to school stories through my years of doing this job. And it's never like hit me like it does now because I have my own kid in it. So now it's like going from the summer of not having to wake up at a certain time and be ready and a schedule. And then I actually talked to the registrar at the specific school. It's like, why is it 8 hours? Like kindergarten doesn't have to be 8 hours, because back in the day when I was in kindergarten, there was like AM and PM. And she said, yeah, we left that about 10 years ago. So apparently I have to go through the TEA to like protest it. So anyway, 8 hours, that's a long time for a child. I know so many of you have kindergartners going into school. So this is a time where there's a lot of anxiety as well. And I have the perfect person with me today, Dr. Leslie Taylor, who we've talked to before. Thank you so much for joining us today. You handle a lot of concerns from not just parents, but children as well. What are the most common ones that you're dealing with right now?
Sure. So lots of questions about how do I get my child to get back to a normal routine for bedtime? Sleep is so critical, and we know that sleep plays a huge role in making sure that we can regulate our anxious feelings and emotions. So that's one of the big questions we get. So to start there, as much as you can, encourage your kiddos to start going to bed 15 minutes earlier, at least every night, until it's time for the big day. There's also questions around homework and preparing for school schedules. The best thing to do when it comes to that is start planning. Don't assume that your kiddo necessarily knows what's going to be expected of them once the school year starts, in terms of who's going to be picking me up, who's going to be taking me to school, where will I do my homework, and what time do I have allocated to do homework, especially for elementary and middle school kids. So being able to really plan that out with them, show them a schedule, can be really, really helpful and alleviate some anxiety about what it's going to be like when things start.
Yes. And one of the things I follow Vanessa Lachey, Nick Lachey's, what was he with 98 Degrees or something? Yeah. Anyway.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes. But Vanessa Lachey, who gives tips and stuff, I follow her on Instagram, and she was saying they do dress rehearsal the day before, which is basically like, waking up at that time, getting ready, actually driving to the school, even though it's not open, and doing that whole thing to get the scaries out. So you know exactly what to expect. And talk about how important that meet the teacher night is, because I took off so I could be there, because it's so important to kind of meet and familiarize yourself. And I guess for parents to also make it feel like, this is all okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Create that face-to-face contact and connection with your child's teacher as much as you can. And if there's a school counselor there that you have access to as well, it might be helpful to talk with both of them, introduce yourself, tell them about some of the things your kiddo is going through at the time, whether it's good, bad, so that everybody's aware and open about communication. You have to develop a relationship, so in the future when stuff comes up, it feels comfortable talking about it.
Yes. And one thing I have to fix is my face when I'm reacting to things. I need to respond to things because kids see what you're doing. So if you're all worried or like, what? Like, you have to you have to really control yourself. And so that's one thing that I've learned, like, oh, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I'm also telling myself that. But so it's so great to hear that school is back in session where, you can see people and all of that. Cause I feel like it would have been harder for all those parents that were doing it remotely, because you're kind of like, what am I supposed to do here? So we have one comment here. I hear you, but I did not know that your community has been affected so much too. I live in Uvalde. I mean, I have to tell you, Ms. Salazar, that we have been affected in terms of what we heard from Uvalde. Any parent, your heart just goes out to them, right? And you feel scared. What kind of reaction are you hearing from parents?
Sure. So a lot of the things that you expressed, and I appreciate Uvalde, representing and talking with us. So we're hearing a lot of the same things that you mentioned, Rashi. Just how do I talk to my kids about any kind of active shooter drills? What are active shooter drills? What will they be like? And so I would encourage, parents to reach out to the school and say, do you guys know when the drills are going to be? Are you going to let parents know ahead of time so that we can have a conversation with our children a few days before? Even if we know the week that it's going to happen, that'll help. And being able to reassure our children, we're doing this to keep you safe, just like you would do a fire drill, or maybe we do drills at home in case there's a fire or anything else that happens. This is something that we're doing to keep you safe.
And, to piggyback off of that, like my son watches Avengers, knows about like guns and shooting and all of that. So when he hears active shooter, I just asked him, like, what do you think? What comes to your mind? And he said Avengers and, bad guys. And so I just said, oh, okay, because I didn't know how to respond to that. So what's kind of like the most appropriate way not to alarm or scare the child?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great question, and it links back to some of the other things that you mentioned. So kiddos are very sharp, right? They're like sponges. So when they see that we're anxious or nervous about something, they absorb it, and it can internalize that through their behaviors too. So when you take the moment and talk with your son or your child about this, you can say things like, "You're right. There are bad guys in real life too. The Avengers isn't real." You may have already had kind of those conversations before about what's on TV that's not real versus what is real. And there are bad guys in real life too. And there are ways that we can protect themselves from them. And this is one of the ways that we can do it.
Yeah, definitely. And in light of Uvalde, because what happened, it's a monster that did this, right? So it's kind of like, how much information do you withhold? Because I know it's all age appropriate. So obviously if you're dealing with a junior high student or high school, it's different, but we're talking more elementary age. And that's, I know the concern that many parents have is like, how do I kind of convey this? And unfortunately, I'm sure there will be other school shootings as well, just, because of the world we live in today. So do you withhold information? Do you how do you make it age appropriate, I guess?
Sure. So what I would say, and when they're little in elementary, it's really important to be very concrete and very specific about what you need. Sometimes as adults, we use like euphemisms, right? Like if you're sick, you say, "I'm under the weather." That doesn't really resonate with the little person per se. So what you might say is something like, there was a school shooting. That means that somebody came into the school and they had a gun and they hurt some children, and some of those children died. But what mommy and daddy do is they take you to places where they know that you'll be safe, where you're around teachers that'll be safe and that are going to keep you as safe as possible, and that we wouldn't put you in those situations if we didn't think you would be safe. And just say, that in other situations, we're trying to protect you as much as we can and learn from those other things that happened.
Yeah, I think, from what you're saying, I think that's great. And what I'm getting out of it is just reassuring them that you're safe, that you're fine, that this is all, proactive. One of the big things, I see this right here. Okay, Miranda, thank you so much for commenting. She said, difficult situation on both sides, but I'm not happy with our kids having to wear badges. That's something I didn't have to do when I was in school, right? Wear those badges and all of that. How do you explain that to I guess children, that we need to sort of wear these badges, because you're not wearing them, otherwise, especially for kids who didn't start off like that. So it's like, you're going to school, like my kindergartner, I'm sure he'll just be like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. But for someone in maybe like junior high or something, how do you kind of explain that?
Sure. So, wearing badges, I mean, that's part of what we do. We know how to prepare ourselves for travel. When we get older, you have to verify who you are so people know. In terms of schools, that's a way that people can access you, is through a badge, right? Mommy and daddy don't want anybody coming to school to get you if they don't know you. And so that badge pretty much tells everybody who you belong to. And it's us.
No, that's great. So, as far as the concerns that you have from parents, what are you hearing there?
Sure. In terms of ID badges, or just generally?
Oh, no, just going back to school right now. I mean, there's just so much apprehension, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So some of the parents are asking questions about, monkeypox. What is this thing? Why is it coming our way now and becoming more serious now? One of the good things about monkeypox that we know so far is that it's not as communicable or as easy to transmit as COVID has been.
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as you're not, sharing blankets, sweatshirts with that other person, not drinking after them, all the same rules that you would have your kids practice for good hygiene, washing your hands, things like that, they probably aren't going to catch it. Nobody has said stop schools because of monkeypox. So the odds are in our favor there. And same with COVID, that's changed too, right? And so that there isn't as much concern for severe disease, especially if you're protected by the vaccine.
Yeah. And so what about with kids whose parents or them themselves choose to wear masks? And there's been, cases of children being bullied about that because you're wearing a mask, and for, because now it's optional. It's not a, mandatory thing. So how do you deal with that? Because that's just awful. I mean, obviously for us adults, we know it's a choice, but for kids, it's different.
Sure. Yeah. And so I would urge the kiddo to stand up for themselves. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different reasons why you might be wearing a mask. It could be that you have somebody at home that's immunocompromised or could get really sick really easily. Like even if you have a younger sibling that can't get vaccinated or something like that. So I wouldn't hesitate to have your kid prepare for how they can stand up for themselves to other kids and talk to other kids why they're wearing the mask, right? And then also telling their teacher, who can they tell at the school if they're being bullied or picked on because of this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so like my son said hi to a little girl and she didn't say hi back. And I was like, what?
Yeah, but that gut reflex. Yeah.
He's like, Mommy, she didn't say hi back. And I was like, that's okay.
Maybe she didn't see you.
Maybe she didn't see you, but I have to like make that correction because in my head, I'm like, did you not see that he just said hi to you? Anyway, that's just me being immature. So I need to just grow up in that front. Okay, let's discuss some of the stuff that you had for us on Instagram. UT Health put this out. If you don't follow UT Health on Instagram, I highly encourage you to do so because there's some great tips. So here's some. There we go. Nurturing homework success. So tell us about this.
Yes. So families are busy, right? It can be really, really helpful to organize a space for kiddo to do their homework. Please don't do it while you're in the bed, while you've got devices all around you, in the middle of a busy place where kiddo can't concentrate very easily. So find a time in a space where they can do their homework. And then parents can also kind of check in as kiddos are doing their homework. How was school today? What assignments do you have? Let's help you get organized and focus on what tasks you can do. This also takes away any surprises that there might be, right? So It could be that kiddo's like, oh, I didn't tell you I have a huge project, due tomorrow, and everybody's frantic. But if there's a constant check-in point, that is less likely to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And being positive and like excited, that has changed so much I just see in my son because he's just so excited. And because I'm like, did you know that you get to see what your desk is like? And it'll have probably your name on it. And he's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I definitely encourage that as well. Okay, here's the second one, tackling school-related anxiety. I think this is great.
Yes, yeah. So definitely we'll take one from Miss Lachey there, right? So
Right?
it's a great idea to do that practice run, to walk the halls, feel comfortable with that. If there's a map that a kiddo can take a look at beforehand, know where the bathrooms are, that's all really, really great. And it can help increase being comfortable. I mean, and as adults, that's what we like to do too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we want to do a dry run before the big day as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a really good tip there. And then here about getting back into routine, because that's a hard thing to do, but it's not too late.
Oh, absolutely not. And it's way better to try as much as you can and do as much as you can before the night before, right? Because then everybody's too tired and cranky the morning of, and it can be overwhelming. And I also really liked what you had mentioned before about being excited. Be excited with your kids about these things. Let them observe you, see this as anything that they think might be too hard. That's a challenge. It's not a threat. It's a challenge. And you face challenges before. You can give them examples of how they face challenges and how this will be no different.
Yes. And I think it's so important to also reiterate elementary and middle school students need 10 to 11 hours of sleep each night. Teens need 9. Moms need 14. I'm just kidding. So it's really important to go to sleep on time. And I was worrying about that. And then I thought to myself, well, once he starts going to school, he's going to be tired and want to go to sleep earlier. So I think that would be different too, to, just kind of being in, not in school right now. The other tip that I had that I got from another mom was it was kind of like a rite of passage when you turn 5 or whatever age, and they went to Walmart and they got to pick out an alarm clock. So then they put the alarm clock on themselves. And so this is like, responsibility. So when it goes off, they turn it off. And so they're always punctual because they know how to work their very own alarm clock. So I think that that's a great idea that I was going to.
I love that.
My husband's like, you read all this stuff and you ask all these questions and then you want to implement everything. And I'm like, yes, why not?
Yeah, that's a great one. It teaches responsibility and ability to do things. So one of the big things that can also increase anxiety in kiddos is them feeling like they can't do tasks on their own. But that's that's something you're showing them. This is how you do it on your own and you can do it.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. What would you say for kids that aren't doing certain things, like either like eating by themselves or like say putting their shirt on by themselves, like they refuse to do it? And I'm sure there's like psyche behind that, but how do you kind of tackle that?
Sure. And as a parent, you may have a better idea if this is a kid who just won't do anything that I ask them to do, or it's really hard, versus a kiddo who may be really anxious. Regardless of what it's coming from, one of the good things to do is to really break it down and tell them exactly what you want them to do at every stage in the game. So pull your shirt over your head, put your hand in your sleeve. Sometimes it can help to really slow it down for the younger kids and tell them exactly what you want. And then also providing as much praise as you can when they do what you ask them to do. So you did a great job of getting dressed this morning. This is wonderful. And then also, if you can, provide some rewards. So if it means getting ice cream after the first day of school, whatever it is, making their favorite dinner, things like that, giving them something to look forward to as reward.
Do you think, like, obviously getting to school on time is a big deal? Do you think almost because you're like, okay, we're going to be late. Do you think it's kind of a lesson if you just are late and they walk in late and they have to kind of suffer those consequences to see that? Like, at what point do you kind of, because I'm thinking, that might be a lesson in itself.
Oh, absolutely. And with certain situations in life, we talk about that a lot with parents and their children. So there are natural consequences to your actions. So these are all the things mommy and daddy or parents are going to do to help you be on time. We're going to give you reminders to pack your lunch the night before if you're old enough to do that kind of thing, and get your books together. But these are the things that are expected of you. And if you aren't able to do them, then you may be late, and these are the consequences.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
That can be a huge learning tool.
Definitely. Well, I want to end with this comment. Nesha from Nesha. Thank you so much. Liana. So my daughter's name is Liana. That's cool. I like that. Well, she says it's unfortunate, but conversations like this have become a necessary evil. Preparation starts in the home. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is preparation at home. So you can always do that. And we can never be more prepared and preparing kind of sort of for the worst so that, you know what to expect sort of. So I would love for us to talk again, after next week when my son goes to school.
Yeah, that's
all the issues that I have, and you could just solve all my problems for me. I'm just kidding. But I think this has been very informative, and a lot of parents from the comments that we're getting, I haven't been able to put all of them up, but thank you to all of our Facebook followers, YouTube, and also on our website, because this is so important. And we're just such in an unprecedented time where, it's parents are stressed out, and it's understandable, not just because of the security, but also, prices are up for school supplies. So, we're all in this together. So, I think as much as I can help out with these conversations, it just normalizes everything, because it's like, I'm not the only one going through this, right? So I appreciate it, Dr. Taylor, for doing this. I know you don't have children of your own, but you said that you had a cat.
I have 4 children, and I
For children.
all the kiddos I see every day are my kids.
Yes, but it doesn't matter, because you are helping those children out, and you just kind of like sympathize with all of that, and I think it's great. So thank you so much again for joining us, and thank you for joining us as well. And if you have any questions, please do comment below, and I'll try to get those answered. Always looking for topics, and I know this is a big one, so we will be revisiting this pretty soon. All right, well, if your kiddo is going back to school, already has, awesome. If they're going to, it's going to be okay. I'm telling myself that too. All right, we'll see you next time.